Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Welcome. Great to see you, Congressman. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First of all, what about Paul Manafort getting out of jail early? So the news today about Manafort walking out of jail in Pennsylvania, there's no record of any infection in that prison, but is that the appropriate step given the possibility of infection in the prison context?
Well, the problem is that Bill Barr has so politicized the Justice Department, the justice system, that people can't have confidence that a decision like this to release Paul Manafort to do home imprisonment is based on the merits, is based on either his health situation or the COVID situation at that prison. No one can really have confidence in that. I can tell you, Andrea, in Southern California, there are two prisons not far from my district, one in Lompoc, one at Terminal Island, in which 40 to 70% of inmates have COVID. And I can bet you that the families of those incarcerated in those two institutions are looking at the release of Paul Manafort today and saying, well, how come my family member is not being released to home custody? It must be because their name isn't Paul Manafort. They're not a friend of Donald Trump. This system stinks. And that's the result of Bill Barr politicizing the Justice Department. People have lost confidence in its neutrality, that justice is blind. Instead, they think that justice bends to Donald Trump's will. And that's just a tremendous disservice and risk to the rule of law.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but to your point, and I just want to also point out that we were just showing some file pictures of Paul Manafort during his trial, not when he was in custody. So those were not pictures of him walking out of prison today. But correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Michael Cohen appeal to be let out of prison also because of COVID, and that has not taken place yet?
That's my understanding, yes, that he's also made a request to be released from custody. He has not been released. And of course, that breeds just further skepticism. Well, why is Manafort, someone the president has praised, getting released when he had a far longer sentence to serve? And Michael Cohen not being released when the president calls him a rat. Now, there could be legitimate reasons for this. Maybe there is legitimate concern about Paul Manafort's health. I really don't know. Inmates tend to lie about their health all the time. But the problem is we can't have confidence in the system when there are such such naked acts of politicization, like Bill Barr intervening to dismiss the Flynn case, like Bill Barr intervening to reduce the sentence for Roger Stone, like Bill Barr intervening to mislead the country about the contents of the Mueller report before it came out and withholding that report for weeks so that he could create a false narrative. The whole counter investigation Bill Barr is trying to lead. It just breeds disrespect for the Justice Department and questions about its neutrality. And therefore, we can't evaluate why Paul Manafort gets out and Mike Flynn stays in.
I do want to ask you about one of the oral arguments yesterday, the extraordinary oral arguments on these landmark cases. And the one that seemed to have the least amount of traction with the majority of the justices, at least, came from the lawyer for the House committees. Let me play a little bit of Justice Kagan, who she and Justice Sotomayor and I guess Ginsburg were, at least seemed to be on one side of it, but even Justice Breyer was not with them on this, at least from what we could tell from their questions. This was her question to the lawyer for the House committee about the appeal, the subpoenas against the president.
What it seems to me you're asking us to do is to put a kind of 10-ton weight on the scales between the president and Congress, and essentially to make it impossible for Congress to perform oversight and to carry out its functions where the president is concerned.
Clearly, that was Justice Kagan questioning the Deputy Solicitor General on behalf of the president's argument against the subpoena. It does look like, at the very best, they would send it back for a re-argument, but that your House committees may not succeed in this effort to get those subpoenas.
Well, it's hard to tell often from the argumentation or the justice questions which way ultimately the case is going to go. I do think, as Chairman Nadler has often observed, when these cases get to the court, we'll find out whether they're truly a conservative court or they're just becoming a partisan court. When you compare, for example, the situation involving the Clinton presidency and the justice's decision that it wouldn't impose too much of a burden on the presidency to allow the Paula Jones litigation to go forward, to allow the president to be deposed, here the burden is so much less. The need for congressional oversight is so much greater. That involved the private litigant. This involves the Congress. And the subpoenas here are to a private third party. The president has no burden whatsoever. So for the justice to conclude, well, a civil suit against a Democratic president has to go forward. That's not burdensome. That's not vexatious. That's not an effort to tear down the president. But legitimate congressional oversight can't go forward, I think indicates that they have a double standard when it comes to Democratic presidents versus Republican ones. But we'll have to wait to see what the court decides. Hopefully, they will follow their precedent. If they do, there's no question the House will prevail. If they don't, it will be, I think, another indication that that institution, like so many other institutions these days, is simply moving in a partisan direction.
I also want to ask you about President Obama and now, in a separate instance, the acting DNI, Rick Grenell, going after Democrats, going after the Obama administration, resurrecting the whole unmasking issue, the president accusing former President Obama of the greatest crime ever. What's going on here? There's also a Wall Street Journal editorial against you as well, against the Adam Schiff transcripts, as they put it.
Well, what's going on is this is the president's effort to distract from the fact that under his watch, we've now lost 80,000 American lives, and our economy is in the worst shape it's been since the Great Depression. This is what this is about. They want to distract attention. They want to create some kind of a counter narrative that, no, it was actually Obama committing crimes, not Donald Trump. It was all the Obama administration of figures. It was Adam Schiff. Don't pay attention to Americans dying right now. Don't pay attention to Americans unemployed right now. But instead, let's focus on this counter narrative that it was Hillary that must have colluded. It was Obama that must have been, committing unethical acts instead of Donald Trump. But the American people see through this. They are focused right now on making sure that they can stay healthy, that they can put bread on the table. That's their priority, even if it isn't the president's.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.